Hey y'all, Chelsea and Danny here.
Enjoy this episode of Today's Homeowner here on YouTube.
This week we're looking at not one, but 4 very simple projects to improve your home inside and out.
Today's Homeowner with Danny Lipford, the voice of home improvement, with projects, tips, and ideas to help you improve your home.
I just love the character of an older home. Now this week we're packing in 4 different projects, 2 for the outside and 2 for the inside. Now we'll move inside on a project where we're removing a number of walls to really open up a floor plan. Then on another project we're enhancing the look of an older dining room by installing crown molding and some nice looking wood wainscoting. And on that same house we're drastically improving the look of the front of the house by modifying an existing front porch. Then, on another project, we'll add a front porch and entryway that makes such a difference on the curb appeal of a home. Get ready, it's going to be a busy show. This week, we're looking at a number of remodeling projects that were designed to update the look of an older existing home. Now, the first one we'll look at in this 40-year-old home made such a difference in the flow of traffic and just the general feel of the interior by removing a number of interior walls. Now, the first wall we removed right here that created this dark, kind of a gloomy foyer, not a very inviting feeling when you came over to visit. So that wall being removed made such a difference in opening it up to the rest of the house. Another wall we removed, which was fairly difficult, was this interior center wall that was a load-bearing wall, so we had a lot to deal with there, but look what a difference it made here by opening this space up between the den and the more formal living area. You know, a lot of homeowners realize that you just simply don't use these more formal areas, but by incorporating it in with the rest of the floor plan, you tend to use it a lot more while still keeping it kind of separate with the different furniture groupings that you have. Now, removing any wall is a little tricky, but removing this one proved to be quite a challenge. At the outset, things were going pretty much according to plan. We measured and marked the locations for the cased openings on the existing walls and then went ahead and removed all of the trim so we could start drawing out the exact locations where the walls would be cut. With that done, we were pretty much ready to start tearing out drywall, which is usually the fun part. It's dusty and noisy, but it's a great way to unload your frustrations. Except this time, we discovered a surprise inside the wall. Right in the middle of the space we wanted to open up was a cast iron pipe. It turned out to be the sewer drain line for an upstairs bathroom. I had to make some pretty quick phone calls, first to the plumber for a little help, and then to the homeowner to explain that the project just got a little more complicated. Meanwhile, the guys moved their focus to the other walls that were coming out, the one between the formal living room and dining room, and the one between the living room and the foyer. Because the foyer wall wasn't supporting a load overhead or concealing any pipes, thankfully, it came out quickly. We also removed the doorway between the foyer and the den since it wouldn't be needed any longer. Things were looking a lot better, but we still needed a plan for that sewer line, and Artie, our plumber, had one.
We're going to take this sanitary line here, roll it back down into the slab, as well as the water lines where we reconnect and join those underneath the slab, bring them underneath here, back over to this chase. As we go up this chase here, we'll get into the joists and cross the line back over and come back to this existing bathroom and reconnect it and get the sewer running again.
Before Artie could do his magic, we had to break up the slab around the pipe with a jackhammer. This extra work, plus Artie's creative pipe routing, added about $2,000 to the budget, but once the trench was filled with new concrete and our beam was in place over the opening, we were back on track. There were a few odds and ends to take care of, like cleaning up the ceiling joist in the foyer, putting in another beam to replace the dining room wall, and removing the old paneling that had covered the walls of the den before our drywall hangers arrived to cover up the voids with brand new wallboard. As the drywall was being finished, the place really began to take on a new feel. More open, more bright, the owners were really going to love this place. Adding the new trim work started to unify these different spaces, but the real thing that tied it all together was the addition of the hardwood floors. Because this house was built on a slab, we used an engineered wood floor that could be glued down directly to the concrete. The glue holds the boards down and the tongue and groove joinery holds them together. This type of flooring is very often installed pre-finished so that there's no sanding once it's all in place. but the owners of this house chose unfinished oak so that they could get exactly the shade of stain they wanted. The wider 6-inch planks helped to make the newly open space seem even larger than it actually was. Now, although there's no hard, fast rules, the most common way to orient wood floors is this way, with the boards running parallel to the longest walls to enhance the feeling of space. These wood floors were a great addition to this house, but the removal of all those walls really made a terrific change to this home. I tell homeowners all the time, we remove more walls these days than we actually build, but you can see why it's so popular because it's such a positive result. Now, another wall we removed was the wall between the dining room and the formal living room, and I kind of question why you would ever need a wall here anyway. It's just, it has a much better feeling just to have it open like it is now. And the furniture placement as well as the area rugs kind of define the use of the room. And the homeowners have done a great job with all their decorating and their personal touches. Now, let's go to another location where we have an outside project that can completely change the look of the front of a home.
It's time for this week's simple solution from home repair expert Joe Truini.
Tall pieces of furniture like this bookcase have become extremely popular because they take up very little floor space and yet they provide plenty of storage. The problem is they tend to be a bit top heavy and it can topple over and hurt someone. My kids were younger, they were like monkeys and they climbed on everything, and a piece like this could be a danger. So your first instinct might be to simply screw it to the wall by going through the back, but cabinets like this typically have about a 1/4-inch plywood back, which is not sufficient enough. You could still just pull it over and rip the back right off. So what I suggest is you get a couple of metal angle irons like this, these little brackets, and tip the piece forward and screw it down into the top of the cabinet, and then simply use a nice long screw and drive it through the top of the bracket and right into the wall. Now you want to try to catch a wall stud for the strongest hold, but if you don't, then use a toggle type fastener. And we can put one more in and then add another bracket on the other side. You have no fear of a piece like this toppling over and injuring someone.
This week we're looking at a number of fairly modest projects that can make a big difference on the look of your home, both inside and out. Now, you hear real estate agents talking all the time about the importance of curb appeal when you're trying to sell your home, and certainly that's a very important consideration, but basically any home improvement project that you do, you want it to add value to your home and certainly add to the attractiveness of the home. Well, Patsy Smith, the homeowner here, always wanted a front porch on her house, but she was concerned that building a front porch might really detract from the overall look of the home. So she worked with a draftsman on a couple different designs, and she chose one that fits very nicely into the character and the architectural style of the home, and it made a big difference on the look of this home. What we started with here was a nice, neat little house, but the tiny little stoop of a porch didn't give it that welcoming feeling that Patsy wanted it to have. So the first step was to clear out the area that the new porch would occupy. That space included the old porch, so it had to go, but removing even that small section of roof would have left the house vulnerable to the weather for quite a while. So we braced up the old roof to keep it in place as long as possible while we began removing the columns and the brick steps beneath it. The new porch would also be brick, but it would begin with footings for the block walls that concrete would be poured into. Around the slab, the brick masons laid new bricks which match the ones already on the house, and then we used the same bricks to create a nice, wide, inviting set of stairs. To give the concrete floor of the porch a little character, we laid out a diagonal pattern on it and then cut shallow grooves into the surface to imitate the look of a tile floor. Then we covered it up to protect our work while the framing got underway. With a few days of good weather predicted, we felt safe to go ahead and begin removing the old porch roof and the roof overhang on the front of the house so we could tie in the new structure into the existing one. The old porch went out with a bang, and the new one began as the outer beams of the porch were established. They were supported by temporary braces and secured to the front wall of the house. Next, the ceiling joists were added. As the name implies, these joists are intended to support the ceiling of the porch, but at this stage they also kept the outer beam from bowing in or out over its 22-foot length. The joists were spaced every 16 inches and tapered down on the house side to minimize the demolition that would be necessary there. The first two rafters and the ridge board went up next, and they established the basic height, size, and shape of the new roof. As part of our effort to blend the new porch in with the older house, we left the bottom ends of the rafters, or the rafter tails, exposed and cut them at the same angle as the ones on the house. We also used 1x8s to deck the roof around the perimeter for the same reason. Where the decking would be concealed above the porch ceiling, we used less expensive sheets of oriented strand board. To complete the deception, we re-roofed all of the adjoining sections of the home's roof with the same shingles we were using on the porch roof. Trim is another detail that often gives away additions, so we were careful to match the size and thickness of our new materials to those already on the house. Even new elements like the porch handrails were planned to match the character of the architecture on this older home. Next, all of this new wood had to be primed before the whole house was cleaned and it got a brand new paint job. The new colors alone would have really helped this house out, but combined with this new porch, what an improvement. Since we finished this project a couple months ago, Patsy planted some great looking plants out front, and I love the statue right in the middle of it all. Now, landscaping is something that will always add value to your home and certainly will make the front of a home like this a lot more attractive. Now, she also purchased some very comfortable wicker furniture, and she says she uses the porch all of the time, and the neighbors are starting to drop by almost every afternoon. Hey, coming up, we've got a couple very simple projects that either one of the projects could be done in just one weekend.
Let's join Danny at the Home Center to check out this week's best new product.
If you have an old exhaust fan in your bathroom, it's probably not only noisy, but maybe even a little unattractive. In the past, upgrading to a new quieter bath fan meant replacing the entire housing and sometimes the ductwork, causing more work and money than many homeowners wanted to deal with. This new fan upgrade kit from NewTone comes with everything you need to transform that loud, unattractive fan into a quiet, modern fan. And because there's no replacing the housing or ductwork, it can be done in about 10 minutes. The kit replaces specific fan models, and in just 4 easy steps, you're on your way to a new fan. Just remove the old grill, remove the old fan assembly, attach the new fan and motor assembly to the new motor plate, and lastly, install the new motor assembly and new grill. For less than $30, it's money well spent. So far, we've looked at a couple projects that would require the involvement of a contractor and would take several weeks to complete, and of course, a little bit of money along the way. I realize not everybody has a budget to spend a lot of money on their home, but there's still some very simple things you can do that'll just make you like your house a lot more. That's the case with this home. It's about the same age as Patsy Smith's home that we looked at earlier, and we recently helped these homeowners with a couple projects that didn't cost a lot of money and didn't take a lot of time. The first one was a rehab of the front porch, which detracted from the home's curb appeal instead of adding to it. The screening and the wrought iron were so unattractive and just didn't fit the character of the house at all. We began by removing all of this stuff, and the wrought iron was the first thing to go. It was obviously difficult to keep it painted because it was so rusty. The screen walls were made from 2x2s and were a little flimsy from the age and the weather. As we removed more and more of the screen, the benefits of this project became more and more evident. What had been a very dark little porch was going to be much brighter and more open without all of the screens. We also removed the two columns in the middle since their primary purpose was just to support the screen door. We reset them at the width of the stairs to support our new handrails. The rails were a simple combination of 2x4s and 2x2s, which we assembled in sections and then nailed in place between the posts. This design was great for the simple, clean look we wanted the porch to have, but it was also important that the spacing of everything be consistent to pull that off. Gauge blocks between spindles and beneath the rails made that pretty easy, but we also had to check a few of the existing elements, like the columns, to be sure everything was level and square. We also added a set of matching handrails to the concrete steps for safety and to add a little interest to the front side of the porch. When the carpentry work was done, the homeowner got involved by completing the painting of the rails and the porch floor to finish the project. Mission accomplished. What had been a liability to this home was quickly becoming the biggest asset to its curb appeal and a pretty cool place to hang out. The modifications of this front porch cost about $300 in materials and took about a day and a half, but it's far more inviting now than it was with all the screen and wrought iron that was here. Now, one other area that the homeowners wanted to improve is their dining room, and we suggested adding some crown molding and some wood wainscoting. The small room wasn't unattractive to start with, but we wanted to give it a little more formal feel. So first, we cleared out all of the owner's decorations and furniture so we could get to work. The hardwood floors looked great, so we covered them all up to keep them looking that way. The crown molding we used here was made from urethane, and it came with a minerless corner block system. This system is a great one for do-it-yourselfers because it doesn't demand a lot of tools or skill. You just apply a little glue to the back of the corner block, tack it in place tight to the walls and ceiling. Then we measured between the corner blocks so we could cut the crown molding to fit the space. To allow for expansion and contraction of the urethane molding, we had to add 1/8 of an inch for every 5 feet of length. This meant that after we put the glue on the back side of the molding, we had to bow it out and into place between the blocks. Then we nailed it down, working from the ends of the molding towards the middle. We also added a ceiling medallion made from the same urethane material to dress up the existing light fixture in the room. Next, we moved on to the wainscoting. In this case, we used a beadboard paneling which we positioned beneath the existing chair rail. We primed the paneling outside before we started to minimize the mess. Then we simply measured and cut out all the pieces we needed for each area of the wall. We used an adhesive designed especially for paneling to help secure the pieces to the wall. This was especially important in areas where we couldn't be sure if the edges would land on studs. Some of the areas around the windows and corners required us to do a little extra cutting and trimming here and there, but soon it was all up and we were ready to put in nail holes and paint. The results were beautiful. The crown molding with the corner blocks raised the level of the finish in the room, and the ceiling medallion helped to add that little touch of formality we were looking for. The bright white beadboard not only added another texture to the room, but it also brightened up the space, making it seem larger and definitely more comfortable. The work that was completed in the dining room cost about $200 in materials and took 2 full days, so it really filled up a weekend, but it really looks a whole lot better. Now, some of the other things that you can do to the outside of your home that won't cost you a lot of money, maybe adding some shutters on a house like this, painting them the dark color would really enhance the look of the house. Flower boxes, always a great addition, and even pressure washing sidewalks and driveways can make a big difference in the overall appearance. And as I mentioned earlier, a little landscaping can go a long ways. Now, speaking of landscaping, check out this week's Around the Yard.
Let's head outside for Around the Yard with lawn and garden expert Tricia Craven-Worley.
Choosing the right mulch for your garden is a lot like choosing the right garden tool for a job. Now, when I think about mulches, I think about all the varieties there are. There are fine mulches like shredded leaves, all the way to really heavy ones like wood bark. When I'm thinking about mulching around my flower beds or roses, I really go to something that can decompose, like a shredded leaf, because after it decomposes, I can just till it into the soil. Now, if I want to put something around my trees like my trees or shrubs, I'm going to go closer to a heavier bark also that would work well on paths. This way, after a season, I can clear it away and then replenish it. Now, also keep in mind how much area you have to cover, because the larger the area, maybe you want to go to a heavier bark. Also, think about what you're mulching. In this instance, we have pine needles around camellias and azaleas that love acid. Depending on your area, you're going to have certain mulches available, so you want to look into it and see what's best for you.
I really enjoyed this week's show, and I hope you did as well. You know, I've got a pretty neat job here, helping homeowners with ideas to improve their homes, then involving them in the process to either the concept and design or doing all or some of the work themselves. Allows them to really appreciate the results of their hard work. Hey, thanks for being with us, and I hope you'll join us next week as we bring you more ideas to help you around your home. I'm Danny Lipford. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching this episode of Today's Homeowner. And don't forget to like, comment, and hit the bell icon so that you'll be notified of new videos.
And be sure to click around and watch some more videos while you're here.